Hi, I'm Sophia Benitez. I decided to keep my observation log from September 22nd to October 1st, and I did it each day, so that's 10 days. I decided to focus on a few things when I was kind of like figuring out how to summarize my observations. Most of them ended up kind of being, I would say they were marked on like kind of more the absence of religion, not necessarily atheism, but just it not existing in the way that it used to in this country. I'm talking about the United States specifically because I can't speak for anywhere else. But a lot of the things I noticed were things in my everyday life, mostly coming from people I knew. I identify myself as an atheist. I have for a long time. I wasn't raised religious, and I'm still figuring it out, but for at least now, I'm pretty firm in my belief as an atheist. I explored all the new atheism and the different sources, and I kind of decided that I could form it on my own beliefs. And I'm kind of surrounded by religion, not in my own family. Most of us don't have any strict religious beliefs, but like I talked about, for example, my boyfriend whose parents are pretty religious and they like me, and I don't want to say anything that will indicate that I don't believe in God because I'm afraid that that will make them reject me or something. And it's interesting because I never really dealt with that before. It's odd to think of yourself as like a minority of belief in that way, and I discussed that at one point in my observations. How my boyfriend told me, "Hey, just so you know, don't bring that up because it might not end well." And it reminded me of some of the readings we did about the religious nuns and discrimination across the world for, I think it was humanists, atheists, and like non-religion secular beliefs. And also in some of the Why I Left and articles that we read about atheists describing their positions. And that one article about, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the woman talking about how she is a bake sale mom, soccer mom, who doesn't want to tell people she's an atheist because then they don't trust her, and that atheists are more likely to be seen as criminals or likely to do bad things, be immoral, etc. So, I had never really examined that part of my life in the way that I did with this observation log, and it's definitely interesting. I don't feel persecuted in any way because I'm not. And as we saw in the map, free thought map, that it's not, this country isn't a horrible, it's a very religious country, but you won't necessarily be persecuted for being an atheist. Maybe excluded, but not actual persecution or discrimination. I also talked about, it seems a bit irrelevant, the movies that I watched. I've been watching a lot of these older Spanish movies from the 90s, Vigas Luna. And it might seem irrelevant because it's from 30 years ago, but it's actually quite relevant, I think, in this country at this time. And it has been for a while, which is hedonism and nihilism and the absence of religion. And then one of them it's called Jamon Jamon, and it talks about, well, it doesn't talk about it, but the overlying themes are kind of these people who lead these hedonistic lives, and it's kind of nothing means anything, and it reminds me kind of like the Lost Generation, like Ernest Hemingway. It's very much like that. It's but much later. It's not ruled by God, and it's a rebelliousness, sort of. And I think that's definitely what we experience today. I think as young people, I know that there seems to be, at least politically, kind of a resurgence of religion, but it's always been there. That's the truth. But then again, you know, typically I think people who are more left-leaning are more critical of religion, and that is a not believing in religion or necessarily adhering to religious beliefs you have from your family or community is a form of rebelliousness in itself. And I think that the themes in that film, and then in this film called Huevos de Oro, which is very similar, a man trying to build a skyscraper and his city and will tear down anyone he can and do anything he wants and is having affairs and everything is just absolutely meaningless. I don't know. It's a critique. I don't know if it's necessarily, it's not promoting religion, but it's showing what it is like for people when they're not guided by that huge force of morality. I also discussed in my log talking with my friend who she's very much on the same, she believes most of the same things that I do, I think, and we have really in-depth discussions about religion, and she grew up quite religious, and her dad's Muslim. Her mom was raised Catholic, and now her mom is a converted Muslim. And but her mom still has those, at least from what she's told me, those Catholic kind of beliefs, at least on the more personal kind of human level rather than like up there. And the dynamics between her parents are very interesting, and we talked about morality and the way that it shapes our lives based on religion, and how it's kind of difficult to guide your life or see the way that it would be if religion wasn't present. So it's still very, impactful. But she's an atheist as well, and I guess I'm so used to being constantly surrounded by religion, but when I was doing this log, I just realized how many times a day these types of things would come up. I didn't log every single one of them because it would be like 10 pages long. And often these instances that I had were, I had to be very vigilant and be like, oh, that's something I could put in my observation log, because most of the time it just goes right past you because it's so constant, Even as a person who I wasn't raised in a religious family, it's so constant, And it definitely was kind of not a wake-up call, but it was very interesting to see how even when I don't seek it out, it finds me, And it's still easy to be an atheist. I'm not changing my mind about that. But yeah, so I think the most significant part of my log was probably the interactions that I had with family and friends. That showed me how my beliefs kind of have been shaped and where the appropriate places are to express them. And I'm starting to feel for the first time in my life like maybe I should keep those things to myself. And it's scary thinking about how I also read my log about some political situations and something recent in the news that I saw when I was scrolling with Secretary of War and a worship group in the White House, which to me is absolutely insane because it's completely, secularism is out the window, and this sounds cheesy, but Nietzsche said God is dead, and I do think God is dying in this country, and not necessarily saying you believe in God, but the true piety and commitment to religion. Most people are probably atheists and they don't even know it. So I hope that was somewhat significant, and for kind of in conclusion, I want to say that I think something this impactful is really important to discuss, and atheism should be more freely discussed, even if I feel like it's a bit scary. I'm so happy to be in a community of people in this class where we can discuss these things and be kind of independent and not judge each other for the way we were brought up or influenced. And I do think that my observation log showed a pretty significant observation of the decrease of major religion within young people, or at least in my community, and how it affects us daily, the kind of remnants of it. And I hope that it was thought-provoking. It was for me, certainly. So that's all. Thank you.